Hello, and thank you for joining us on our analysis of the cross-border acquisition of Mittal-Arcelor. My name is Danny, and I am joined with Harrison, Devin, and Aaron. An agenda for today's presentation is as follows, starting with a brief introduction, strategic rationale, acquisition risks, takeover defenses, integration challenges, and finally, the proposed action. Now, I'll be passing it on to Aaron to introduce our analysis.
Mittal-Steel has been building up its company through using the formula of numerous acquisitions around the world. In 2006, Mittal's attempt at a hostile takeover of Arcelor was blocked by the government, but was relented the same year, allowing for the merger of the two companies. Mittal believed they could obtain and sustain a competitive advantage that would be unattainable by any other company in the industry. Mittal took a big risk, and Arcelor hit back with many defenses. But as a result, Mittal achieved their goal in becoming a giant in the industry in the acquisition of Arcelor. We will now share with you the Mittal strategy in doing so. Mittal's strategy aims to achieve long-term sustainability through product diversification, geographical diversification, and vertical integration of its value chain. Mittal's attraction to Arcelor is derived from the kinds of production carried out by each of the respective companies. Mittal's sales emanates from the production of basic steel products at low costs, and alternatively, Arcelor produces high-grade steel products for industries such as construction and automobile that demand higher quality products. Mittal's bid will give way to new markets where they lack production facilities and are able to create value that neither companies could achieve on their own. These complementary approaches is an ideal fit that would yield greater geographical scope and access to raw materials because of their small geographical overlap. In the approval of Mittal's offer, the deal can be expected to generate $1.6 billion from synergies in research and development, trading, and reducing operational costs such as procurement, sourcing, logistics, marketing, and distribution. Arcelor will benefit from an upstream integration from its acquisition, accessing more raw materials, whereas Mittal-Steel will benefit from more of a downstream integration. Mittal's strategy has a great opportunity to make a considerable impression in the industry, but it does not come without risks, which Devin will talk to you about now.
Okay, due to Mittal and Arcelor being from different countries, Mittal originating in India and Arcelor originating in Luxembourg, there are various risks that they have to navigate in order to acquire the company. So there are cultural and societal differences, such as differing values. So Europeans tend to value punctuality and professionalism a little bit more. So they need to understand that in order to have successful negotiations. There are legal and regulatory battles to be fought. There are different laws by countries and governments. And since Luxembourg is part of the EU, there are overarching laws through them that they would need to navigate. So that takes time and resources to understand. So there are some legal obstacles such as tender offers, where they're required to purchase once they've acquired a certain amount of the company, they're required to make an offer for the rest of it, or minimum price rules where there's a minimum price set on the stock that'll give the stockholders a fair value when it's being purchased. And there are other defenses that the company itself can take that can cause a roadblock, cause issues for, in the case, Mittal to take over Arcelor, which Harrison will talk about a little more in the next section.
Arcelor obviously didn't want to be acquired by Mittal. Therefore, they employed certain defensive strategies to prevent this from happening. They employed these strategies for two main reasons. First reason was the different cultures between the two companies. The business culture of the two companies were not similar at all, which is the main reason why acquisitions fail. Dole, the CEO of Arcelor, believed Mittal was a company full of Indians, and that Arcelor was the image for the European social model. The article states that 75 to 80% of acquisitions fail because of these cultural differences. The second reason Arcelor employed a defense against Mittal was that Arcelor didn't believe in the cost synergies that Mittal promised. They believed that this was only possible through plant closures and layoffs. The companies were very different in their production, as Arcelor produced higher quality products than Mittal with higher margins. Now, the first defensive strategy was transferring the control of Dofasco to Strategic Steel Stitching. By transferring the control of Dofasco, Mittal would no longer be able to sell Dofasco to ThyssenKrupp. Mittal wanted to do this in order to avoid antitrust issues. The next defensive strategies were increasing dividends and returning more cash flow to shareholders. Arcelor increased their dividends by 85%, and by returning more cash flow to shareholders, it was thought that this would also increase Arcelor's share price. These strategies were taken to gain favor with the shareholders of Arcelor, as it was thought that the decision would ultimately come down to them. Lastly, Arcelor decided to merge with Severstal. Severstal is the biggest steel and mining company in Russia, and therefore an important acquisition for Arcelor. And now Danielle will be talking about Mittal's integration challenges.
As previously mentioned, one of the challenges that Mittal will face with the acquisition of Arcelor will be that of the cultural differences between the two companies, where in order to ensure success, it's imperative that Mittal executives understand the culture of their new target markets. If Mittal does not understand the cultural differences, there will be an increased chance in unmatching synergies between the companies, as well as potentially some of the key employees from Arcelor that would be vital for success following the acquisition. Another integration challenge Mittal will face is the general fact that there are a relatively low rate of successful mergers and acquisitions at about 20%. However, there's also benefits that will come from the acquisition, with one being that Mittal will have access to new markets that were previously held by Arcelor or other companies. If Mittal were to choose to operate close to these new markets, they will also attain a low cost factors market, as there will be a reduction of trade barriers. With the reduction of trade barriers, Mittal will also minimize their cost structure, since they will be able to pull material from the local markets. Lastly, as long as Mittal can align the synergies of the two companies, they should gain community knowledge from Arcelor key leaders and employees, where they will be able to help Mittal seek out legal environments and competitive environments to ensure success. Lastly, with both the challenges and benefits considered, Mittal should press ahead with the acquisitions, as the benefits will outweigh the costs. With Mittal taking the anticipatory measures of meeting with government officials will make the transition smoother, and operations should be able to begin just shortly following the acquisition. Mittal should utilize a global strategy, as their consumer base will be expanding and they will be keeping their products the same throughout. With the use of a global strategy, Mittal will be able to boost their revenues and keep costs relatively low. And lastly, Mittal must effectively acquire aligned synergies, and with that, they should expect long-term success. Thank you for listening to our presentation.